So if you weren't present on the internet about 3 to 4 months ago, you probably didn't see arguably the biggest spectacle of self-sabotage and meltdown of someone's career on the internet. Like, I'm talking the biggest whiff I've ever seen. Like, worse than Summit 1G's Molotov incident. Worse than losing Midwinter Mirage with an AWP because you couldn't stop shaking like a grandma with Parkinson's. Bit of a long comparison there, but this situation cannot be underestimated. Especially with the fact it could have all been solved or at least minimized by the uttering of 2 words. But anyway, if you don't know, I'm talking about the situation with Pirate Software or Jason Thor Hall. Someone that initially grew in popularity around 2022 due to his success on platforms like YouTube Shorts, something that genuinely perplexed people at the time due to how aggressively YouTube was serving up his content. Like, even I was affected when I did use YouTube Shorts. But I've moved on to greener pastures. I'm now enjoying my counterfeit lively content on Instagram Reels. But he gained a large audience partially due to these shorts, because not only could you learn things from them like hotkeys, I triple doggy donkey dare you to press Ctrl Alt Shift Windows T. I bet you won't, you little bitch. But he also encouraged you to do things like make games. From the perspective of someone that supposedly had years of experience from making his own games, and supposedly working in the industry at places like Blizzard. But he won't actually let you know that. He's very secretive about that fact.
When I worked at Blizzard, I did that for Blizzard. Blizzard, 7 years, yeah. Blizzard. I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment. Used to work at Blizzard Entertainment. Your red team specialist for Blizzard Entertainment. And Blizzard.
But he built his platform from there. Most people liked his character, and he genuinely inspired people to start making their own games. You can't take that away from him. But not only were people watching his shorts, the success also leaked onto his long-form content, and then later his streaming career, where he would usually average upwards of 10,000 viewers per stream, and even winning the Best Software and Game Development Streamer Award in 2023, and his popularity only grew from there. You could say at this point Pirate Software was at the tippity top of his career, before it all seemingly went so very, very wrong. And he went from one of the most liked influencers to one of the most hated in a short amount of time, primarily due to his own ego, and the fact he'll vehemently defend any hill he chooses to die on, commonly spreading the rhetoric that everyone else is the problem and not him, even if without a doubt he has been proven to be wrong.
I'll admit when I'm wrong, when I feel that I'm wrong. But if I don't feel that I'm wrong and you do, that doesn't mean I owe you an apology, right? Just because you're upset doesn't mean I owe you an apology. And that's something that a lot of people don't seem to understand on the internet.
This has led people to call him arrogant, to a liar, to a narcissist, to even a lolcow at this point. And just all around, people no longer trust the words that come out of his mouth. And what makes it worse is even if he still went down this path of never admitting he was wrong, I think he would have probably gotten away with it and have been probably fine if he just didn't respond to the people criticizing him the way he did. Because as a content creator with the backlash, he had 3 choices he could have made. He could have sincerely apologized, which, to be fair, with Pirate Software you would have a better chance of betting your entire life savings on green at a roulette table and winning. Or you could take the chaotic neutral approach and just ignore everything, don't speak about it, and hopefully it will all eventually blow over. It won't entirely blow over, but the less you feed a fire, the less fuel it has. Then we have arguably the worst option, which Pirate Software chose, which is responding to most of your critics directly, affirming them you are right and they are wrong, essentially doubling down and in some cases tripling down, even when in some cases it has been proven you were in the wrong, and refusing to communicate and banning or blocking anyone that has a different opinion to you or is criticizing you. In one instance saying content creators giving their takes on this are being reported to Twitch for fueling the harassment, but in general just actively responding to criticism in a hostile way just keeps fueling the fire and gives people more of a reason to troll you. I think at one point he even had a ban counter on his live stream, showing the amount of people that had been banned in that stream alone, in some cases for just mentioning the events that were happening around him. And someone also speedran being banned in his chat. I think if he didn't do things this way, the drama would have come and went, and he would have had an infinitely easier path to redeem his online career. But some people did take it too far, to be honest, allegedly doxing him, sending death threats, and some even made fun of one of his ferrets dying. However, his reputation didn't just free fall overnight. There were multiple footnotes that led up to this. First, it started with the World of Warcraft situation, which happened in January of 2025. Yes, for those smart asses out there, if we went chronologically, it would be the Stop Killing Games situation. But at the time when he made that initial comment about that movement, nobody really had a problem with it or even questioned it. And if they did, they wouldn't be noticed, as the vast majority did not have any reason yet to doubt Pirate Software. It was only after things like the WoW drama and the responses from Ross from Stop Killing Games and Moist Critical that people started to genuinely question Pirate Software and his overall character. But anyway, fuck you. Classic World of Warcraft, that game where that one guy defecated in his pants playing the game.
Oh, god damn it! I forgot to make a health stone!
Back in early 2025, Classic WoW was mainly popping off in the streaming space again, down to a content creation guild called OnlyFans, comprised of many other streamers and content creators, and they were doing hardcore Classic WoW, where if you die you have to start all over again from level 1, and it takes a while to get back to the goal of max level where the game actually starts. And Pirate Software was a part of the aforementioned content guild and claimed to be a proficient mage on top of allegedly having experience working on the game when he worked at Blizzard. However, when a group of OnlyFans members were doing a dungeon and liquid feces hit the fan, and the team pulled a mob they shouldn't have, and the party could not handle the spit roast gangbang that was about to happen, the call was made to retreat and to exit the dungeon. And Pirate Software proceeds to haul ass towards the exit, not really helping his team when they tried to recover, and wasting his mana along the way, and then complaining he had no mana to help when his teammate called him out. And it was also alleged he had items that would restore his mana so he could help. He then left the dungeon ahead of others, 2 people died, and members of the team expressed their frustration towards Pirate, of which when confronted he left the call, something he would do again later on, when they all came together with a group leader to kind of sort it out, and when the other guys had their turn to speak, he just left.
Is what makes us so mad, Pirates.
There's no zero accountability, dude. Everyone can do something better, but when you open up and you yell over another person
can
like
I
you were doing
speak?
Nah, I'm good.
You joined the call? See, like, he's so egoistically...
People also began looking at previous gameplay where he apparently did the same thing, on top of being a dick to other less experienced players like the streamer Lakari. In the Aftermath, people assigned him the name Roach because he roached out the dungeon, and he also proceeded to ban anyone in his Twitch chat discussing the event. He made a statement saying everyone misplayed, not just him, and he was receiving a bunch of harassment for this. He later insinuated anyone trolling him through the in-game message system may potentially get banned because he has connections from his time at Blizzard. He called out other content creators for calling him out, saying they were cannibalizing him for content, and that he was documenting the people doing it, and reports were being made to Twitch. He started to delete and alter his clips so popular pages like Livestream Fails couldn't criticize him. He then got kicked by the content creator guild OnlyFans, of which he responded to very poorly as well, speaking bad about the guild, which just added more fuel to the fire at this point.
Because they want it to be a double down, a triple down, a quadruple down. They want to have a villain. They want to have an enemy. They want to fight that shit into the ground. They want to send death threats to people over it. Because they're goddamn insane. Because this guild has turned into a content guild built on hate, not a content guild built on experiences. Because they're freaking monsters, dude.
Hot off the heels of that situation, a game developer made a meme saying they would implement Pirate Software in their game with sound effects and all as a roach, of which they provided a video, but this was an offline build, it wasn't actually in the game. And when Pirate Software got wind of this, he DMCA'd the whole game, claiming he was actually in the game, of which he wasn't, meaning it was a fraudulent takedown. Pirate threatened them with further litigation when they countered the claim, even saying he was going to sue them and they would lose.
So I filed a DMCA claim, and he has now filed a counterclaim against me. We're going to take you to court. You're going to lose. You cannot use somebody's likeness or voice in any way inside of your games without their permission.
A lawyer that caught wind of it defended the game dev and noticed the lawyer that Pirate was waving around called Kronos, who was also one of his mods, allegedly couldn't even represent Pirate because he was from the UK and there were questions if he even practiced law. And that's pretty much it for the WoW situation. It was one of the longest controversies, and I think personally the one that started the erosion of his reputation. Yes, it started over something that happened in a game, but it was more Pirate's reaction to criticism which made people more cautious of him, his character, and just overall questioning everything about him. And fucking hell did they question everything. As the next situation in the same month as the WoW drama in January 2025, people started looking at his gameplay of certain puzzle games like Outer Wilds and Animal Well. And despite being heavily against spoiling or needing guides to complete these games and getting assistance from his chat, some people theorized he was actually cheating, looking up guides on his phone every time he got stuck. The main evidence being every time he did struggle a little, he would suddenly out of nowhere get the answer to the puzzle.
Wait a minute. I think I just solved it.
And this included some puzzles where you would need knowledge beforehand, or were just really difficult, like in Animal Well, and sometimes he could be seen looking down at what people assumed was his phone. Now with this situation, in my opinion, I don't think it really mattered. If he did cheat, I guess he just ruined the game for himself just to make himself look smart, which if true is on the same level as saying you actually have a girlfriend, she just goes to another school, in a different country, in a completely different continent. Apart from that, I think this mainly gathered so much attention was due to it quite literally spawning after the other situation blew up. However, the next controversy to follow would very much set in stone that the tide was about to change for Pirate, because it was the Stop Killing Games debacle that occurred around June of 2025. Stop Killing Games is a movement where basically consumers actually own the games they buy, and in some capacity, if the game's owners or servers ever shut down, that game will still be somewhat functional, and people will still be able to play it because, you know, they bought that game, they should fully own it. But instead with games like The Crew, when their servers shut down, nobody could play it anymore. So this movement was created to put the ownership back into consumers' hands, and mainly surrounded the European version of it, and the spokesperson for it was Ross or Accused Farms. Piratesoftware, when he heard about this movement before any drama surrounded him, basically liquid shat all over both Ross and the movement, making assumptions, misinterpreting the movement, and just overall speaking poorly about it.
It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
However, nothing really happened till after everything happened with things like the WoW drama. Ross responded basically correcting everything he said. Pirate heard this and in usual fashion, despite being proven wrong, stuck to his opinion and still spread misinformation and his own opinion on the movement, and refused to speak to Ross when he reached out or anyone trying to actually educate him on the subject of the movement. Then Moist Critical got involved, did his video on the situation, and it blew up even more. A lot more people were criticising Pirate and he still did not back down or admit he was in the wrong. But he did apologise to Ross for some of the words he used towards him. However, unironically, with all the attention this situation got, it quickly turned from Piratesoftware killing the movement early game to actually saving it and it receiving all the signatures it needed with all the publicity happening. And Pirate still to this day refuses to admit he was wrong about the movement. And at this point, the hate for Pirate had hit its peak. Even Meat Canyon did a video about him. And then what quickly followed was the controversy where people questioned if he was the seasoned game developer he claimed he was. People combed through his work history, not really finding anything to do with game development. Some assumed he was a Nepo baby because his father worked for Blizzard and was very influential there. Pirate himself did admit previously that when he was a teen, he did get a job due to nepotism, but that's the only time he admitted it.
My first job I got through nepotism, 100%. My dad worked at Blizzard for 23 years. He worked at Blizzard for 23 years, so I got a job there in 2004.
And people began deconstructing the games he had made, like Heartbound. Specifically, people like Coding Jesus looked at his code and basically said this is not what you would expect from someone like Piratesoftware with the credentials he has. Some noticed it was unoptimized in places, which Pirate did respond to, saying it was so optimized it could run on a smart fridge, which was quickly disproven because the fridge was used more like a monitor, not the actual component running the game. And some criticised the fact that his game has taken years to come out and has been pushed back multiple times, and there have been straight up months without any updates, or updates that were severely lacking, and during that time he was playing games instead of working on said game. But that was where we were 3 months ago. Obviously that was the short version of most of the events. In my other video I go into more detail, but there are a plethora of other videos covering the same topic. And all of this could have been easily minimized if at any point he swallowed his ego and just uttered the words, "My bad." But he didn't and chose to go down with his ship that was his ego, and unfortunately he has somewhat lost his platform because of that. But yeah, it's been 3 months and the internet has pretty much moved on from Pirate. But I just wanted to look at the aftermath of everything and go into what has been happening since.
I saw this woman breastfeeding her child in a non-optimal way, so being the kind man I am, I showed her how to do it correctly.
Well, as said before, Pirate lost a lot of his audience. On his YouTube channel, this equated to losing over 570,000 subscribers since January 2025, where he used to sit at 2,660,000 subs. He now, as of this video, sits at 2,090,000. And to be honest, I can't think of another case where someone has lost more than 500,000 subscribers in 10 months. But he still sits at 2 million subscribers, which is impressive, but he is actively bleeding around 50,000 subscribers per month. And his viewership on his latest videos have seen a decrease as well, but to be honest, he also doesn't upload as much. On Twitch, where he streams semi-regularly, he lost around 200,000 followers, and his average viewers per stream went from the ballpark of 10,000 to 2,000, which is still good, and he's still in the top percentile of streamers, but admittedly it is quite the dip. Also, unfortunately, people do still show up in his comments and his Twitch streams to troll him, despite the majority of the internet forgetting about the situation, but he still does have somewhat of a platform. If we were to look on the bright side of this, he has more of a tight-knit community more than ever now, because there are people that still stuck around despite everything that happened and are still supporting Pirate, which is a small win for him. He still does his educational and somewhat uplifting shorts based on his experiences, which understandably people are a lot more skeptical after what happened.
I lived out of my car for about a year when I was much younger because I was a dumbass with my finances.
By the way, every question that he gets asked, and it's blatantly visible in the shorts, he has live experience of this. Oh, Piratesoftware, I'm a recovering heroin addict. Got any tips? Well, when I was younger, I also...
In regards to Stop Killing Games, which he was very much against, once again, it reached over its signature goal, partially thanks to the drama that surrounded Pirate, and the movement changed its goal to verifying the authenticity of the signatures so that it could properly pass, finding that 97% out of the 1,448,000 signatures were valid, meaning it did successfully pass and would need to be addressed in some capacity by the EU. More recently, there is apparently a UK Parliament debate scheduled for November 3rd, 2025, and in multiple other countries similar things are occurring and related movements are being created in countries outside of Europe. So basically the petition passed and it is finally being discussed by governments. And Ross of Accused Farms, who was heavily pushing for this movement, is taking a much needed rest and talking about going back to his normal content, like his Freeman's Mind series, which he started 12 years ago. Going back to Piratesoftware, people were still questioning if he actually was the person he says he was, specifically YouTubers like Quinthios, who basically turned into more Pegasus for a moment when it came to pirate content. To be honest, he probably did take a page out of Pegasus's book. However, the main question was if Piratesoftware really was this great game dev that wasn't a nepo baby and built himself up not on the back of his own father. Well, through Quinthios, a past Blizzard employee that worked with Pirate and also lived with him, heard about the situation and came out with their experience with him. She showed proof that she worked with Pirate, showing a Blizzard yearbook of sorts from 2013, and to be honest, she didn't have the best of things to say about Pirate. And just keep in mind, she is recounting a lot of this from when it happened, 10 years ago. She firstly claimed when he did work at Blizzard in her area, he was very charismatic and got along with people, but it was very difficult to get him to work.
Problem. Don't get me wrong. He's very charismatic. He is easy to get along with socially. However, he was very neglectful of actual work. He was hard to rein in. He was hard to get to focus on anything important. Like, he wanted to do what he wanted to do. And it wasn't like he was a jerk about it. Like, I don't want to misconstrue that at all. I'm sure everybody has seen his streams. Like, he pulls off the personality, you know? Like, he's nice to his coworkers.
And in one instance, he was given work and he just idled in the client and browsed Reddit.
He would just kind of create a character and idle in the client and then read Reddit. That's literally what he did. He sat in front of me and I was assigning the tasks. So not only did I see the work he was not doing, I saw what he was doing instead.
There was even one point where he allegedly requested another monitor for his work, but just browsed Reddit on it.
He requested a third display because he claimed he needed it for his bots when he started doing some automation testing. He just wanted it to have the extra space for Reddit, YouTube.
And they wouldn't really correct him on his behaviour because nothing really would get done about it, no matter how many times they escalated it to upper management, allegedly because his father was someone higher up at Blizzard.
So I talked to my manager and I talked to one of the department heads. Like, I talked to the manager over the project. And I was essentially told that no one is going to do anything because of who he is. And this has nothing to do with Joey Ray directly. Like, I want to make this very clear. I'm also friends with Joey Ray. Like, he is a mutual friend of friends. Okay, so like, I've had direct interactions. I know him well enough to say he would absolutely not do anything to help Jason.
And she also speaks about how most were afraid of doing things like writing him up or any disciplinary action because it could impact their careers in the future.
Here's how nepotism actually works, which Jason also doesn't understand. It does not look good on your future at Blizzard if you mess with an executive's son, period. Everybody knows who Jason is. If you write him up, if you fire him for misconduct or otherwise, people are going to know you did it. They're not going to know that anything was actually going on. They're just going to know you were the guy that fired Joey Ray's son. And your career is pretty much toast because everybody in the games industry knows each other too. He was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do because nobody would course correct him.
And she also shared they did a charity event for a children's hospital where they played League of Legends to raise money, and he freaked out at his team for losing.
Hours straight. Pirate just happened to participate in this. I was on his team for a league tournament, and he screamed at our team for apparently not gearing correctly to counter the other team. He was just yelling across the floor at everybody.
It's a charity event, correct?
It was a children's charity event.
She also goes on to speak about living with Pirate, because she had a spare room at her apartment and coincidentally Pirate needed to move out of his dad's house. So she offered that spare room and it only lasted a week, because of instances where he would be screaming at people on the game EVE Online, his cat destroyed her chair which she never got paid back for, and he wasn't the cleanest of people.
It took days for him to start screaming at people on EVE overnight.
EVE Online. EVE Online.
Yes.
Okay.
The cat, that's totally non-destructive, straight up destroyed one of the chairs within the first week. And because it was patent leather, like the polyurethane stuff, he offered to tape it up for me, not replace it, and also tried to make it out like the cat never did anything to the chair. All the dishes everywhere, like the pans, still food in them on the stove, shit everywhere, food, countertops, everything everywhere. Like, it was not disgusting sty, but it was very just a fucking mess.
And probably the most infamous part of the story is when she looked at the bathroom he was using and it was also a mess.
I just turned on the hall light and I peeked in there and the place was a fucking sty. He had never put up a shower curtain in the bathroom. There was like ashy stuff everywhere, like gray ash kind of looking spots everywhere, including like in the shower, on the floors, on the countertops. The toilet it had been a fucking week, and I could not understand the state of things.
But the worst part was the mysterious liquid on the walls.
He had cleaned nothing, so I had to clean everything by hand. There was like, I don't know what on the walls in his bedroom, and you're just gonna have to like take my word for this. I don't know if it was snot or something else, just like wiped here and there on the walls, and more of the like random gray stuff, just spots.
The arrangement didn't last very long, and she told him to move out, of which he did, but this also didn't help Pirate's case at the time. People now assumed nepotism played heavily in his career, at least in the past. On top of now, he wasn't the cleanest of people. But that's if you trust the account of this previous co-worker. Pirate did somewhat respond to this, mainly addressing how people were apparently accusing him of not doing anything at Blizzard, so he showed his awards whilst working there. But at least one of those awards was actually mentioned in the interview, which was for the charity event which, despite his behaviour, he was still awarded. And the past co-worker also got one.
So they give us like these little cards whenever we do cool things at Blizzard. And this was related to the charity event. That was like thanking me for playing nice with my coworkers, and I'm like, oh wow, he got one of these too.
Apart from that, he didn't respond to any of the other claims like the mysterious liquid, but there was also one final situation going on at the same time, which was Pirate being accused of fraud involving Twitch's Hype Train feature, where viewers have to meet donation or subscription goals to get to the next level of the Hype Train. And Pirate beat that record at one point on a stream in April 2024, of which the VOD has now been deleted, but he got to level 106, beating all the previous records. However, on the same stream, Pirate accidentally shows his DMs with him and Kronos, his head mod, where they are discussing Kronos donating to keep the Hype Train going on an alt account and to donate in bits, so they could potentially get a return on that investment, of which he did go through with it, and the donation came across as a friend of Kronos, not actually Kronos.
Bean with 50,000 bits said IRL friend of Kronos and excited that they are now free from corporate.
I know.
Love your stream and what you do for people here. There aren't many cool or supportive streamers left once they get big like this. Stay cool, bud, and tell Kronos that Ben sends their regards.
I'm sorry you had to know Kronos in real life, just like me.
Now, Kronos responded by saying the VOD of this happening was deleted because people who donated were getting harassed, and that's also why he donated on his alt account. The fallout of this was some saying Pirate should be liable for litigation involving fraud, or at least banned on Twitch, because some interpreted the screenshot as him saying donate and I'll pay you back for the bits later. Pirate responded to this saying it was Kronos' money and he could do whatever he wants with it, and that Kronos was not reimbursed for this.
That's against TOS though? No, it is not against TOS. It is absolutely not against TOS to have somebody use their own money to buy subs and bits for the channel if they want to. That in no way was triggered by me, nor was he compensated for that or reimbursed for it.
And that is basically where things were left.
You heard this guy worked at Blizzard? Oh man. Did you read that in a Reddit thread? Tell me about it in the unbanned request, chat hopper.
So that is the aftermath of what happened after the main controversies surrounding Piratesoftware, and all of this basically happened due to a game of World of Warcraft and the refusal to admit fault at times. To be honest, if you look at it this way, Piratesoftware has a lot of balls. It may just be arrogance, but he has watched the internet and even his own community turn against him to the point where he's lost a lot of his platform and influence. And despite all of this, he is still going and still to this day not admitting he was in the wrong. I'm sorry, but that's either peak delusion or honestly impressive. His major flaws were once again mainly not admitting when he was wrong, especially surrounding a certain movement, how he reacts to criticism, and allegedly lying about some of his credentials. However, at the start he did do some good as well. He inspired people to make games, educated them, and more recently annihilated any imposter syndrome most people were feeling at their IT job because of the recent drama. He's still going, and I think he will be going for a lot longer. Once again, he does still have some people still supporting him despite everything that happened, and as I said in my previous video, I genuinely do hope he learns to admit fault down the road, or at least learn how to deal with criticism better. But for now, he's doing somewhat fine, and that's all I had to say, and bye-bye.